welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma, and as always, I have the holiest of holies. It's the Reverend Tracy. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, Tim. How about you?
A little nervous this week. The professor told me that her parents are listeners to the show now.
Womp womp womp.
Yeah, Bob and Kathy Baldwin, hello there. Yes, she mentioned that because when I met her mother at the birthday party, and you've seen this with me before, in certain situations with certain people, I can talk till as long as the day is long, but around other people, I just clam up tighter than Fort Knox. And apparently, her mother had a conversation with her. It's like, how come he can talk so much on the podcast and not so much in person? And I just said, tell them it's me.
Social anxiety.
Yes.
Just saying, like, I really loved it, by the way. There was a tweet by Keanu Reeves that I think is oddly appropriate here. Is like, people ask him, like, why are you so quiet? And he's like, I don't know. I don't go around asking you why you talk so much because it's fucking rude, or something to that tune. But yeah, so basically people are who they are. And not that they're being rude, by the way, by saying that. It's just like, yeah, like, people are just, they are.
Mhm.
And if this is a venue where you can talk more, then that's awesome, especially if people are enjoying it. Because I know that, like, if Aubrey's not on the show all the time, I'm assuming they listen because they enjoy it and not just because there's like a familial thing there. So welcome to listening. I hope I don't accidentally insult you ever. Because the Reverend Tracy sometimeth putteth footeth in her mouth. So.
Well, yeah, and I certainly do that on a regular basis. But let's start things off here. We do got some sad news we wanted to discuss. What is that?
Oh my. So first of all, like, kick in the teeth after kick in the gut after everything this last week, which is, you know what? Good for being good parents, Aubrey's parents, and supporting your child and being there.
Yay!
You know what? I will leave that as simply as a joke that I wound up accidentally crafting with a friend of mine over this past week. And that is, daddy issues is a lot like herpes. Just because you think you're done experiencing it doesn't mean it can't happen at any time. And that's gonna be that part of my week. But the really shitty cherry on the top of the crap sundae that was family issues and drama was, I went out for a walk in the morning on, I think that was Tuesday. Yeah, it was Tuesday. So on Tuesday morning, I went out for a walk, and I wound up, like, cutting through because there's a lot of little paths and trees and stuff. And, like, not too far off the sidewalk, I happened to notice my squirrel friend, who I have mentioned on this show. And yes, I do know it was him. He had a very distinct notch in his ear. And I kind of, like, hate myself a little for checking, because I could have just totally walked on by, but it was in my head because we hadn't seen Kuko in a number of days.
Right.
And he usually comes by. Like, he's a pretty consistent visitor. And so, yep, I found my squirrel friend, unfortunately, and I don't know what happened. Like, no obvious tells. Like, even being a country gal and, like, seeing some shit.
You didn't do an autopsy?
No, it wasn't. That's not, like, I didn't need to know that much, right? Like, I figured, I thought he was an older squirrel anyway. So very honestly, it could have just been ill timing and him being up in a tree, because he was just laying there. Like, there was no attack. It didn't look like there was a fight or anything dramatic. And the odds of him only getting glanced by a car and it not be, like, obvious that he got hurt, like, seems really low. So anyway, I think Kuko maybe died of, like, old age or something, but he was just in the grass. And you know what? Not every squirrel gets a funeral, but not every squirrel is a backyard friend of my family. So I prepped a cardboard box that I had that was very thin. There's no plastics, like, they try to make stuff pretty recyclable. So I peeled off all of, like, the tapes and shit. For anybody out there worried about that, like, I do try to be conscious of Mother Nature. I wanted it to be as natural as possible. But yep, we made a little gravesite for him and just kind of marked it out, like, in this little area where, like, the kids, like, go into their secret passage. So it's kind of away and not being a bother to anybody. And honestly, right. I think it's kind of better than just letting him sit there on this, like, near the sidewalk, right? Like, it makes sense that
Oh, much more dignified ending, because if it was just like on like public land or something like that, then you're talking the sanitation people would just toss it and put it in a garbage bag. And we're talking about a creature here. Now, granted, yes, it is a squirrel. If there's a house fire and I can either save the professor or save a squirrel, I'm saving the professor. But it is still a living creature, and living creatures deserve respect.
Oh yeah, especially like because he was a cool guy. Like he was sweet. I think he was like, if I hadn't been so afraid to let it happen, because I'm aware this is a wild animal and I don't, there's diseases and stuff. Like you need to be practical about, I could fantasize about being Cinderella with the bird and squirrel friends all I want, but when it comes down to it, I get too anxious to actually like feed them from my hand.
Right.
Right, because it's not like the same as farm animals or even animals out in the country because they're not as exposed to people.
Like me with the peacocks.
But so yeah, we had a nice little funeral. My partner, the Mr. Reverend, and I went out and tried to bury him discreetly. So I'll probably share those photos just because it was cute and a silly thing to do, but we both felt good doing it. Like I was sad. I was so good up until I told my partner like what happened, like what I found. And then I immediately started crying. So see, I do have a soul for those out there, depending on who you ask, that maybe don't believe that I do. I do have one. And apparently animals like go right to my inner cry feelings. So that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I get it too, because again, animals are living creatures, and that does not mean I think like every dead animal deserves a state funeral, but
Right. It wasn't anything like that. We were very discreet about everything, and I like layered my hands in like bags because I wanted to be really safe about everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice that it's done, and it's like, you know what, in a way I'm kind of glad that I found him because he was a cool little dude. He was in our life for a year. He kind of became our pandemic buddy because I found the video of when we first started calling him like Kuko.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing about it, just, if we're going to talk about him, we may as well celebrate his little fuzzy life. No, my stepdaughter had made a cake, and it was a failure, like to put it very nicely. It just, it happened. She's learning how to bake.
Right.
And she had one, it was like one of the first cakes we had just kind of let her go in the kitchen. So it didn't come out that great. So I just had it there and it was stale and I didn't know what to do with it. Well, this squirrel had been frequenting our backyard area. So I was like, I wonder if this squirrel will eat some of this cake. And so I put some of it down because, I think one of the things she left out was sugar. So I didn't feel too bad about it.
Right.
And, he nibbled on it and like took off. And so I actually found the video where I took a video. It was like, I think my squirrel friend came back for some more cake. So that was nice to kind of look back. But I totally felt my feelings because it is okay to mourn the loss of an animal that you felt like you've done anything with. Like I don't cry over every squirrel that I find, like, you know what I mean? Because if you did that, you'd stop at every intersection and just have it out, like
just
in tears.
Wailing, yeah.
But yeah, so anywho, that is my remembrance of Kuko on the show and celebrating the life of our furry little pandemic pal. Super sad.
Hashtag never forget.
Hashtag never forget. He may be gone, but he is not forgotten.
Kuko forever.
Kuko forever. There's my tattoo. See, I just get like Kuko for life. With just like a squirrel doing this because we joked that he did like the lean like a cholo thing, the elbows up.
Word, yeah.
Well, he was a squirrel, he didn't have many like poses.
Yeah. I mean, well, I know the one that occasionally goes by the fence here. Yeah, his main thing is just creeper, just staring.
It's like, what are these asshole humans going to feed me? There's this one guy in like Southeast Portland. It's like, I got it made, man. These people need food. I get apple cores and dates on the daily.
Well, that used to be when we were at Aubrey's old place. I fed the scrub jays that were in the neighborhood there. Just left out like a big plate of seeds and put all kinds of videos up on Facebook when that happened. But now every time I hear a scrub jay, in the back of my head, I'm like, is that my scrub jay? Did they follow me?
Oh, dude, I'm already starting to think about the birds, like because you remember Phoenix. I would assume Phoenix is probably, if he lived through everything, is about that age where they would put him back. And they ask for the cross streets when you take a bird to a rescue like that, because they do try to release them back in the area. And there was totally this little yellow bird that just like came and sat on my back porch. And I am cool with like convincing part of my brain that that was Phoenix, just saying like, thanks, yo. Thanks for saving my life. I know my brother was like not doing so hot when you came up, but at least you saved me.
Well, watch those dodo videos on Facebook. I mean, animals very much know when a human is there to rescue them, and they will very much show you appreciation. Not all of them, of course. You know, like the more wild the animal, the less likely they're going to want to lick you or something like that. But I mean, how many dog videos of like pregnant dogs that are like living in like abandoned houses that are rescued do you see where the mother, after being rescued, is like jumping all over and just happy? You know, I mean, they know when a human is there to help.
Yes, especially like because they'll act timid or something and like end up leading them to where the puppies or the kittens are and stuff like that. And yeah, it's really great. Like, yeah, animals, I really wouldn't put it past. I think that's why like I believe things like that can happen. So just why not let that be part of my reality? The little phoenix bird came by and said, "Hey, what's up? I mean, it's spring, so I'm gonna go get busy." But
well, yeah. So like, but also like, hey, do you got some of that food, maybe?
I know I haven't fed the birds at all here. But what's great is the new place in Maine. Like, there's like kind of trees outside our back patio sitch. So I'm gonna try to actually make some bird feeders and shit. So be ready because I might be nerding out coming soon with some do-it-yourself like house shit. Well, because we're moving into a house, like it seems like a perfect time to like nerd out about, you know, organizing stuff and getting things set up. And we're doing it like super minimalist anyways. So we're going to be starting from scratch on a lot of stuff.
Nice. Well, and also Maine too. Think about all the different animal life you're going to be seeing compared to here or compared to the other places you lived. I mean, different types of birds. I mean, it's going to be quite interesting. So there better be lots of pictures.
Oh, there will be, and with my new camera, but I'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
You actually had something you wanted to talk about first, but I did want to say, like, by the way, the only bummer about Maine that I've learned so far is apparently ticks are a real problem for the hiking community. So I'm going to have to really, I haven't had to think about ticks since I was a child on the farm because they're in Texas, but not like that. Like not like where you go for a hike or go through the local park and it's like, nope, there's like 5 of them on my leg. Like, so I guess I'm going to have to, ticks.
Hope you don't get Lyme disease.
Well, and also for those that don't know, if you get bit by the Lone Star tick, you can risk not being able to eat meat for the rest of your life. I had that happen to a friend. I don't know if she's a listener to the show. I should ask, but she's on our group. But I thought she was pulling my fucking leg. No joke. I thought she was just making fun of me because I was a vegetarian.
Right.
And,
I was going to say, I was like, maybe you? I don't know.
No. And then, so that's how I learned about it, was like thinking my friend was making fun of me. So I'm glad that I doubted that and decided to go to Google.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of groups, the professor went and did something, and she told me after the fact, and it is pretty awesome. She is now a member of the Jomo and the Possum Posse Fan Club.
Fancy cards.
Yes, for like it's on their Patreon, and on the show description we'll have a link to their Patreon because I mean we've talked about all their albums on the show here. Jomo and the Possum Posse is a great band, but for like as low as like $5 a month you can join support them and join their fan club. Like on the back of the card here it says, should this card be found in the possession of any person other than the individual to whom it was issued, please notify the posse and destroy the card, preferably in some sort of over-the-top, dramatic, and ideally violent public display. So there's that. Also has another sticker here, a smaller one, but the big reason why she wanted to be a part of the Jomo and the Possum Posse Fan Club is for this bumper sticker.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay.
Yes.
You want me to read it, or did you want
Oh,
to?
it says my other car is a buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah, Jomo and the Possum Posse are famous for a viral video that first hit in 2012 called "Guy in a Buffalo," and the Guy in a Buffalo was the introduction to that I gave to Aubrey for the band. So yeah, she wanted this on the car here, and they even Jomo even sent a handwritten note.
Oh, I can't see it quite because,
Yeah,
but you can read it to me,
I
right?
will read it here. Yeah, he wrote, "Hey Aubrey, thanks so much for your support. Let us know if there's stuff you like to see more of. Jomo and the Possum Posse." And then on, I thought they were gonna have a PO box, but the Possum Posse, I'm assuming it's an office somewhere, but they have an Austin, Texas address on here, and yeah, the Rio Grande District Post Office. So, but. Jomo and the Possum Posse, great band. I just thought the bumper sticker was worth the price of admission alone to be a part of their fan club here. So
Nice.
that is pretty awesome here. But
That's neat, and I like that they do those touches like that. I hope they're still able to, like, um, realizing whenever I was listening to like that Dixie Chicks episode from, what was the name of that podcast you sent me?
you're wrong about, I believe is the name.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
wrong about. Is like there's apparently some kind of sweet spot as as a magician. Wow, as a musician. Apparently, like I want to talk about fucking magicians next, guys. As a musician, of like you can be kind of doing really well, but not be really huge. Like that's kind of when the chicks had their kind of little divide there and wound up, getting Natalie and that whole
Yeah.
story. But I think like that seems like the kind of place I would want to be, like when it came to a level of stardom. So I don't know, Possum Posse. If you want to be big, then cool. I won't diss you. But it seems cool if you're the type to handwrite notes to your fans. I don't know those. It's sad when that stuff goes away. So I hope you achieve the proper amount of success that you wish. But it's cool.
Yes, and obviously too, like they're in a spot to where they could do this. If Paul McCartney had a fan club, you would not expect Paul McCartney to send you a handwritten note. So it's awesome that they got the time to do it. And not that Paul McCartney wouldn't want to be nice to his fans, but with the
Exactly.
sheer amount of people that like his music, it would be impossible for him to write
Oh,
handwritten notes.
dead on what I was trying to say. Not at all like a snootiness or, oh my God, you're such a sellout. Like nothing like that. Just you get busy, right? Like just the
Yeah.
more shit you do, the busier you get. And so that's like that kind of cost.
Well, and they're also in a spot too. It would be great if we were able to have this on the show to where they're able to essentially, in some way, control their destiny. They can make, they being able to have a fan base on Patreon that supports you financially like that. You can, you're still beholden to them. They are your investors, so you do have to listen to what they say. But on the other hand, that gives you more freedom as the artist to, they're buying into the vision of what you are now. So they like what you're doing now. So they're not asking you to necessarily shine it. Like if we're talking like people on our Patreon, for example, it's like they're not expecting us to be like NPR quality good per se. They understand that, it'll be a little rough around the edges, but still it would be awesome for us to be that, but it's awesome that they appear to be in that spot to where they can just be a working band.
Yeah. And enjoy it while it lasts if there's goals to get bigger.
Yeah.
Because it's nice.
Yeah, it is indeed. But speaking of nice, you got a new phone.
Oh, yes. So this is called an anniversary gift that happens early. Well, actually, the anniversary wasn't early. It got turned into an anniversary gift because we had basically been planning on upgrading our phones. The Mr. Reverend and I consider ourselves to be quite frugal people. We will keep the same phone plan for a long time. Like I had the whole jump thing because, I go through T-Mobile or whatever. And that allows you to do that every once in a while. But I just don't do that because I don't need to. It's just me chasing the next phone is not a hobby of mine. It's other people's hobbies. It's an expensive hobby, in my humble opinion. It is not one of mine. So it's really kind of great to go from like a 2018 phone, if not 2017. I don't remember when the S8 came out. But basically, I had the Samsung Galaxy S8. And now I have jumped up to the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra.
Uh-oh.
Which is amazing because we were actually trying to figure it out because, there's promos and stuff like that. But it basically was like we got twice as much money given to us if we both went ahead and upgraded. And with the Mr. Reverend like graduating, it was already kind of earmarked to be a graduation gift for him and kind of like a wedding gift, I guess, for me, just for both of us to do it because we kept our phones for so long. So anywho, it made more sense to go ahead and do it. So we have. It's also double nice because it gave me the excuse to go ahead and change your phone number and stuff. Because if I'm going to be opening up a bunch of accounts in another state, I should be able to give them like a local number maybe.
Right.
But yeah, it's really excellent. So the first things I've noticed are the photos on it are amazing. I really have a camera that does phone things, y'all. And it's beautiful. And I was such a good adult, so proud of my adulting ability because I waited until the OtterBox that we ordered came in because we were able to score a really good deal on some OtterBoxes and like basically couldn't say no at that point. Like we looked into it, found the deal through some promo thingy, and then it was like basically getting free stuff at that point. But this one's got a pop socket built into the back. And what's nice is I didn't know this, you can change these out. So I have ordered a Bill Cipher one. So I've got a Gravity Falls tattoo. I really love Gravity Falls. We could totally like nerd out about Gravity Falls at some point, probably just in and of itself. Right. If you're a fan of the show, you understand, but I won't go into it because that's going too deep off of when I'm supposed to be talking about my phone. But so I've got like a nice like pop top coming in for that, and we got kind of the same thing. We were able to find a deal on like some invisible shield stuff, and it's like the new one that does all of the eye safe features. So it will actually eliminate the blue light. It's antimicrobial, so it's like kind of really clean because phones are really dirty, they found out. Yeah. So overall, just I went deluxe on my phone, I guess, for the first time in ever. And I've done really good at keeping my one phone intact for 3 years. I spiderwebbed the screen is what happened. I was taking pictures of something to sell it and went, oh, I should move it into this room so it's got a better background. And then I didn't put my stupid fucking phone in my pockets. I have pockets now. I brag about these legging pockets. So anyway, I'm still mad at how I did it, obviously. I need to get over it though. But ultimately it got us into a really good deal because who knows if this deal would have been going on like in 2 months when we moved. So because they change them every once in a while, and summer's kind of a hot time and it gets like just ebbs and flows because there's no new phones coming out. But by the way, if you're looking at doing a phone upgrade, I would look in the summers because that's what I learned in all this research and is asking questions. It's worth sharing with the nerddom, so it's not just me talking about myself. Apparently if you want to upgrade your phone, summer's a really good time to look into promotions because nobody's coming out with new phones. So they're trying to spike sales. And I'm sure you probably knew that, like working at Apple, or did they just always come out with stuff anyway?
I worked with a heartless, soulless corporation, and basically with Apple and any technology company, they do save. For the computer companies, the phones now are the big sellers. Apple makes most of their money on the iPhones, and those do come out around September time, in terms of the holidays. But for iPhone customers, they know that if the new phone comes out, you're generally still gonna have to wait until the new year for it to be available as a walk-in, or the Oregon Apple stores do have some ability to not have the lines that you normally see with new phone releases, to where you can like schedule a time to come in to purchase it, to prevent, because what you'll have is what I found at Apple is that you will have a lot of people that will abuse the system when new phones come out, and because what happened here in Oregon is that you'll have a number of people that will pay homeless people to buy the new phones. You'll find like a bunch of like Vietnamese people who don't speak English will come into the Portland store and with gift cards with the exact amount of money needed, and then they will give the phone to the person who gave them that money, and then that person and sells it overseas for like double the cost. So, or just they're making obscene amounts of profit on this. But the
Wow.
fact that you got so many people that are doing that across the country makes it kind of like a bottleneck in terms of getting in the phones in the hands of people that really want to use them. So, yeah, the summertime is usually the best time to get the phones because, and I would recommend that to people too, because especially when a new phone comes out, you're not necessarily going to have a problem with the hardware. You're going to have a problem with the software when the new phone comes out, because that's generally when the new version of the operating system comes out anyway. And that's just not a good time to do that. Make sure to do that during the summer, because then you can do that. But when it comes to a phone, 3 to 5 years is the average life. So if you got 3 years out of it, you got more than your money's worth, because you use that phone more than anything.
Yeah,
People
and like
generally do, yeah.
especially with I'm doing the creative stuff that I want to start doing again when I get back in Maine, and I found out, man, just the camera on this thing, the upgrade, because 3 years in all of this tech. So it really is kind of amazing to see. Like I took some selfies. The front-facing camera is way better than the S8, of course. Like I'm not really surprised, but it is just very like wow, vibrant. Like even going out in the backyard and just taking some quick photos and not even playing with it. So I'm really excited. It's got like something like a director's view for when you're doing video, and what it'll do is it'll help block taking in any sound like from the front of the phone, and it will try to focus on taking like in front of it, like where you're pointing the camera only, so that you're getting less of the chattering and the whispering. So it's like for kids concerts and stuff like that, if you're trying to like just for places like that.
And that is the beauty of Samsung phones. Even Apple people have to admit that the cameras on the Samsung phones are exponentially better than the ones on an iPhone. They just are. So you're going to be able to get some great photos there, and if you can make that last between 3 to 5 years, great. And good going on the OtterBox. OtterBoxes are probably one of the few cases I would recommend people getting, because it's what I found in terms of sales, and I think I mentioned that when I commented on your new phone on Facebook, is that a lot of times the people that sell the phones want to oversell you on the importance of screen protectors on your phone. Screen protectors are important to have. I mean, obviously, you're interacting with it on your fingers, and if you do have scratches and abrasions on it, it can affect the performance of the device. But that's what they're meant for. They're not meant for what some phone people will try and sell you on in terms of protecting against impacts or breaks or anything like that. That's not their job.
Because that being said, like I dropped this phone in the parking lot of a job I was at and accidentally like comically kicked it face down, like on the and it didn't have the protector on it anymore.
Yeah.
And it just scratched it up pretty, like you could see a lot of micro scratches, but it still worked fine. It took dropping it and it just finally landing on like just this one, there's like a screw, like whenever you go in between two rooms, there can be that brass plate. It landed on that, so there was really no fixing that. I mean, maybe even in the case it might have broken, since the OtterBox doesn't technically protect that. But that's the deal. Is I was like, okay, well, I just shattered my phone, so if I'm going to get a new one, I should try to hedge bets in my favor, especially if I'm getting a nice phone, of it not shattering as easily. Because the last time I had an unfortunate mishap with my phone was actually early on into kind of my stepmom roles, and I had left it on the top of my car and drove off, like just gone. And what it was is I wasn't used to buckling in a small person in my back seat. And so I had put it geniusly on top of my car and closed the door, drove off. And I just like, when I couldn't find my phone later, that's when I slowly started putting together what had happened. And we used the Find My Phone, and it was supposedly at the Fred Meyer parking lot or something. And then by the time we got there, it was gone. Like I could understand, because that parking lot gets there's kind of the same people that you see, the general homeless people that live in the area, and I really would not blame them if they found a phone and didn't know what do you do with it? Like, especially if it's
Well,
dead.
yeah, and these days too. I mean, with the Find My Phone feature that you're going to find in both Android and iOS devices. I mean, the good thing is that you have the ability of erasing it remotely to where your information's protected, and then that having that security feature kind of is in some ways a deterrent for people to steal the device, because doing that, the only way they'd be able to access it would be to get into the phone again would be if they had some of your personal information, which are not going to be able to. So they have a very expensive paperweight on their hands.
Exactly, but I could see if they would try to, like, I don't know, sell it to somebody. But
I'm sure they
that was
will.
basically 3 years ago, so
Yeah.
I am okay now. Obviously, I don't think anything bad came from it. Like, I don't even know if there were any like pictures on there I should be worried about. I don't think so. Like, but you never like. That's the thing, right? Is like I swear I could probably have never taken like a picture that I would be like embarrassed about ever. And
Mm,
if I lost my phone or technology, that would still be the first thought that came to my mind. That's just how anxiety brain works, though. But I
yeah.
did have a little bit of concern for that for a minute. But I was like, well, I mean, but then nothing happened. So it turned out to not even be an issue. I just wound up getting a new phone. And then now I've got my really nice phone. So lots of pictures. There will be some. And then I'm excited because if I do any like cooking with the Reverend, the quality is just going to be better, and I'm stoked. But
Oh yeah.
get an OtterBox. Basically, don't get stupid insurance plans. Just get a really good protecting.
Uh,
Oh no. Ooh, I did some math and I am mad at myself on what I paid on insurance, how little that actually helped me.
Oh, it depends on what we're talking about here. If
Okay.
like Apple has a thing that they offer their customers, Apple Care Plus, which is something that I would actually recommend. It's different than how the
Gotcha.
insurance goes. If it's something directly from the manufacturer, like if Samsung had a special program that would allow you to get it replaced or fixed in a much more timely manner, then I would say go for that as well. But the insurance ones, however, that goes into whether you have a shitty salesperson or not. If they're good, they're going to tell you the pros and cons, because those insurance things, they can benefit some people. They definitely can, but not enough salespeople want to take the time to let people know what they're getting into, because not everybody needs that or wants that.
Yeah, I basically I don't know. I'm not sold right now that like the insurances are great, because essentially for it to be worth it, you'd have to lose your phone like once a year, because the screen protect like because right I shattered my phone, so of course
Yeah.
I looked into getting it fixed,
Well,
and because
that's the
that goes
difference as
back to
well.
frugal. Oh yeah, but
Because with the insurance stuff, that's a monthly charge, whereas the Apple Care Plus is a one-time charge, and then from there. So if it is a one-time charge, then you're good. The monthly charge, not so much. But
put on those skepticals if your phone insurance is a monthly charge, is I think
yeah,
what we came down to. So
yes,
but yeah, but anyway, I got a new phone. Just protect your shit. It's worth more just to buy the good case. Like spend the extra dollars so you're not
on
like
the case,
spending.
not the
Yep.
screen protector. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But speaking of pictures, Kevin Spacey is gonna make a new picture, a new movie.
Ooh.
Yes, which is something to talk about here, because on the show we have talked about cancel culture on numerous occasions.
Yes.
And as of 2017, 2018, one person on that cancel culture list was one Kevin Spacey, because there were it started with the actor Anthony Rapp, who is a longtime actor. You may know him from the recent show Star Trek Discovery. He played one of the aliens on there. But he said that when he was 14 and working on Broadway, Kevin Spacey tried to seduce him. And there were other allegations that came out as well. There were even some court cases. But one thing to keep in mind is that Kevin Spacey so far has not been found guilty in a court of law. However, the court cases in question that we're talking about, one was dismissed because it extended the statute of limitations. One case was dismissed because the person bringing the accusation died. And the third one is about to be dismissed if it hasn't been thrown out already, because the person bringing the accusation is scared to tell their name. Because, I mean, think back to the Alan V. Farrow documentary that we saw. When you have someone in a position like Kevin Spacey, who has lots of money, who has publicists, what are they going to do? If they found out that person's name, they would have done everything they could to put information out there bad-mouthing that particular person. Again, Kevin Spacey's not guilty in a court of law, but there's a lot of icky stuff about his behavior, especially his behavior on set as well. Now, the film in question is not a Hollywood film. It is an Italian film. So it's not like it's something that will necessarily appear in America. But this begs the question, you know, something we've talked about before. I mean, like, Kevin Spacey, I'm sure, has a lot more money than both of us combined, but he still has bills to pay. You know, he, you know, should still have a way to be able to make some money. But what does it say about the production company that would hire him at this point? You know, it's like, I don't know what he's done between the time the accusations came out and today. It's very much possible that he has done some things, you know, to essentially make amends or work on some of that behavior. But we haven't heard of it. You know, and to me, this just rings of Kevin Spacey thinking that, you know, the general public has forgotten about me, so I'm gonna do a movie again. You know,
well, see, I also had kind of heard it this way, like, because this is a person who doesn't follow this stuff very closely speaking here, but the way that I had kind of had it, I guess, in my brain, the summary was that he more or less got canceled for a second and then got uncanceled because of he basically said something along the lines of, well, you know, but I'm gay and I felt the need to be closeted. And I don't know if that actually happened, because at least I admit, like, that if I don't know, because this is totally me just like what people have said at water cooler talk back when I was still in corporate offices. But yeah.
The thing, though, when he came out as a gay man, he did that in the same press release where he's denying the accusation from Anthony Rapp from when he was 14. And apparently what he said in that press statement was that he doesn't remember the alleged incident, but he apologized for, quote, what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior. You know, and then he ended by stating, oh, yeah, I'm gay. I'm paraphrasing there, of course. He didn't say it that way. Yeah. But that statement at the time was heavily critiqued, not only by actors, not only by people like Wanda Sykes or Billy Eichner, people that are, you know, working in the entertainment industry and openly gay, but GLAAD, you know, came out and, you know, said that coming out should not deflect from the allegations in question. Now,
correct.
You know, I am all for a redemption story. Like I heard the other day that Lindsay Lohan is getting a job in a Netflix movie. It's a silly Christmas Hallmarky type of Christmas movie that she's making. But I hope this is a sign of her essentially making a comeback here. I'm all for comebacks, but you know, without hearing any efforts that he may have made in terms of changing his behavior, you know, it's like, I'm not going to watch the film. It's not like I make a habit of watching Italian films anyway. So I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm not going to watch this film. Of course not. But it's like, on the one hand, yeah, he does have a right to earn a living. But if this behavior that he's been accused of that is related to his working ability in terms of how he works with people, you know, to me, it's like the person that robs a bank and then, you know, after they get out of jail wants to work at a bank, you know, it's like, should he continue to work in a profession that he has abused?
That is a really good question, and I am not going to even pretend that I'm going to know how to answer that one, because really, yeah, it is hard to answer, because what is Kevin Spacey going to do? Go be like a barista and like push coffee? It's like, yeah, I was Kevin Spacey. I mean, I still am Kevin Spacey, but I'm not the Kevin Spacey you used to know.
No, he'll do like no, he would simply be like the alternate universe of Star Trek and just like grow Van Dyke and be like, I'm the good Kevin Kevin Spacey. The one without the Van Dyke is the evil Kevin Spacey. But
Oh my gosh, beautiful.
yeah, and yeah, it's like we're not going to solve this problem here. And obviously, we don't know him. Like I said over and over again, I don't know the steps he's made. Maybe
Oh
he has done
yeah.
some stuff to make him amends, and if that's great, and he's able to give back and resume his career, then fine. And it's like, it's like. As a fan, though, it's like, one, do I necessarily need to see him make that amends? But it's like, I think I should as a fan, because if I am going to potentially at some point in the future give money to a movie that he is involved in, I want to make sure that he's not abusing his power and hurting other people in that movie. So I think it is an important question for people to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to being a fan and you giving him money to do his job. That feels like a bit of a betrayal, and that's where I started to understand like why people get upset. I still don't understand why you demand other people, like the whole cancel culture kind of it's almost the toxic end of it, the cancel culture thing, like where you demand other people have to boycott them too because you're upset about what they did.
Yeah,
But that doesn't negate a person feeling upset, deciding not to give money, because you don't want to give money to somebody to abuse somebody. You're paying somebody to abuse somebody. That's why I don't like to give money to certain, either restaurants or retail sometimes, is I don't like how they treat their employees. So I'm not going to give them money to abuse their employees. I hope those employees find better places to work. That is the overall cycle that I hope for when I have thoughts like that.
yeah.
But so as with anybody who has felt betrayed, I do understand requiring maybe some proof that you've done some change in order to have that trust be open again. Like, and that can even be applied to so many different things, like not even just your Hollywood stars. Like, come on the friendship level, if you feel really betrayed, you might need like a conversation to happen, or you might need to have heard maybe through friends and grapevine that they're like, hey, like they went to this anger management group. And and even right before the show started, we were talking about how somebody that I had like a blow up with wound up, we didn't talk for years, but they went on one of these retreats that basically is like helping you get some of your shit together. That's really just the best way to put it. It's supposed to help you become like more successful in all of your manifestations or whatever you're doing. And whatever it was she got to this point where she was supposed to call and make amends with somebody. And, that's cool. And you know what? If she ever texted me saying, hey, you want to go for like a hike or get coffee? I am way more likely to do that now than if that person had just texted me, hey, let's get coffee. Because my first thought, like, without that middle step of proof would be like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Because it was kind of a rough, obviously it was kind of rough for both of us, because if I was a person she thought of, so at least it was kind of odd that that is kind of a way to process that, I guess. I just did that live on the show.
Oh, there we go.
Oh my God. But yeah, so
therapy, right?
basically, I guess I'm saying I totally understand for you and for anybody else. I wasn't a diehard Spacey fan, but I'm diehard fan about so few people, and I really lucked out because it's like Keanu Reeves. I really loved Gene Wilder, God rest his soul, or whoever you believe in, rest his soul. But so if you really liked Kevin Spacey and don't know how you feel about it, or any actor, I guess Louis C.K. is somewhere that I can relate on this one. Like, I really loved Louis.
Yeah.
And he came out with that, his self-produced special that he put on a website, and I haven't bought it. I still don't know how I feel about buying that one day. And I was a really big fan of his. But I would want to know, maybe I could see that helping me, if he's like, yeah, I did these classes and like really got into my fucking brain, and I understand why that was bad. I can see it. I can see wanting it. I don't see demanding it. I don't see like trying to get a bunch of people to pick it, because that's his personal information to share. If you think about it, it would be like demanding somebody admit they're doing AA when the whole point is it's anonymous,
Yeah.
That is that person's healing, but should there maybe be some sign that he's changed if that's what he wants to portray? That is his choice to portray that, though, right? He has all the knowledge. If he's changed, he knows he has, which then would beg the question is like, well, maybe he will, maybe he won't. Who knows? But maybe he's a better person. I'm with you. I do try to believe that people can evolve and be better versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes, unfortunately, it does take being caught doing the bad thing to have the wake up call. So
Yeah.
hopefully
One name I think of, Mike Tyson. Like people don't necessarily want to talk about it as much, but in 92 or 94 he was convicted and spent time in prison for rape. But now recently he had a big 2020 interview or something like that, but he's very much kind of regained his popularity over time. That doesn't mean people forgot. Like when I saw the interview, the commercial for the interview, and then they brought up the rape thing, I felt that was kind of in poor taste. But that's more of how the commercial was made more than anything. I believe people, if you give people a chance, they can and will change. And it'd be great if at one point in the future I was able to see that with a Kevin Spacey. I'm not his biggest fan, but he's done some good work. You
Oh,
can't doubt
yeah.
that. He's a great actor.
Yeah, he's a really great actor. It's like I've seen him in a lot. But yeah, I just didn't follow him. He wasn't one of
Yeah.
those ones like, "Oh my God, he's in something." Meanwhile, Gene Wilder, like I knew when he was on Will and Grace. And I didn't watch all of Will and Grace, but I did watch a few episodes that he was in. And, I followed that guy. Keanu Reeves, I don't even follow all of his movies, but I just think he's a fascinating human. And I would have coffee with him in a heartbeat. But
who wouldn't at this point?
isn't he great? Like, do you ever
Yeah.
see some of his quotes that come by? They're just wonderful. I'm like, well, yeah, Keanu Reeves, of course I'd have coffee with you.
Well, it's not even about the quotes. Like commonly you will see like people taking like pictures of videos of him in the Los Angeles area, just hanging out with like homeless people. But what he's doing is like giving them food and talking to them, treating them with respect. And
Yeah.
I guess with Keanu, like he's had a very rough life. And he's at a stage right now to where he is essentially taking that sorrow that he's had to deal with and trying to make the world a better place for that, so
Oh geez, I can't relate to that shit at all. Like
yeah, totally unrelatable, but
no, maybe we should nerd out about him sometime because he's worth maybe talking about. Like, he's a neat guy. I would totally nerd out. Maybe for his birthday.
The Keanu Reeves special.
We'll do a Keanu Reeves special. It's like maybe he'll listen to us. No, I don't know.
But anyway, you've been watching some TV.
Oh yes, I found a new binge-worthy show. I think it is fantastic. It's called BuzzFeed Unsolved: True Crime.
All right.
And something I do want to warn about. So I won't go on too long because you can totally go through and episode by episode and see the kind of cases they're covering. But I will let you know ones that I've seen, like, O.J. Simpson. They covered, what was the Wood person, her name?
Natalie Wood.
Yeah, Natalie Wood. They covered John Benet Ramsey. And then they've also covered just a lot of, like, mysteries. With that being said, it's a pretty dark show. If you're sensitive to any of that material at all, one that kind of shocked me a little bit was there was a situation where they found like a 5 to 6 year old boy in a box, and that is the beginning of that episode. So you do need to be kind of emotionally prepared for some of that stuff, but it is fascinating. I think they cover it with really good taste, and they are really funny. They've got really good chemistry with the jokes versus the seriousness, because like one of them is like really kind of nerd out level about true crime,
Right.
and the other one is more responsive, like kind of like I feel like you and I try to do that sometimes with it's not always, but sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Where one of us is more learning about it and reacting to it. And they do that super well. So if you enjoy that type of thing with a lot of, he tries to deflect the very heavy, dark nature of it with comedy, I would say check it out. It is on Hulu right now. And amazing. They also cover, like some of the boogeyman situations, like the Tylenol scare that happened in Chicago. So
Oh, that ties in with the Adam Ruins Everything episode about security theater, because the Tylenol scare, the reason you have like childproof caps on there is because of that. But the childproof caps don't really do anything. It's just there to make you think that the company is really doing something when it's just an additional thing that they put on.
Yeah, but a lot of the tamper-proof stuff came from the Tylenol story, and then
Yeah.
stories like the Axeman and just so many stories. And by the way, like they don't try to go too graphic. Like they're not reenacted with a bunch of gore that's going to give you like the visual type triggers. So if you're fine with hearing storytelling with good deflection and humor and can maybe handle topics like children being found in boxes and sad stuff, you can handle that show. That's really like the worst thing that I think they've covered.
So, like the OJ episode, they didn't show the police shots that are available on the internet of like Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman's bodies.
No, I don't think they may have shown, if they've shown any like crime scene stuff, it's very brief, and I haven't noticed anything just overtly like,
Yeah.
Not shock value. I don't think they're going for shock value. I think they really are just going for kind of nerding out about some true crime stories with one person who definitely, like, they're both funny, by the way, but he does really feel like he's kind of that source of that comic relief.
Right.
So if you like true crime, and like some of the podcasts out there, like, whoa, would give me nightmares, and that's not even with the visual stuff. So I think these guys handle that topic really well.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like a lot of the podcasts that follow the show account on Twitter are true crime podcasts. So I know that's like a big subgenre, but definitely one to check out. But let's lighten things up and talk about abortion.
Yeah, like how do we move on from, dead
Yes.
bodies and unsolved crimes?
Well, it was announced recently that the Supreme Court is going to be taking up a case about a Mississippi law that is questioning a lot about abortion rights, and it's with the court being stacked the way it is, with Republicans spending years of cheating the system in order to be able to stack the court. There is a very, very real fear that this could put a huge damper on abortion rights for the country. Now, to be clear, if this case in particular, basically how the Supreme Court works, they're taking the case now, but the essentially their verdict is not expected until fall of next year. So just in time for the midterm elections. Keep that in mind. So anything can happen, but with the justices that we have on the court here, there are going to be a lot of people in a lot of states that are going to be seriously affected by this. And if you are a person that supports reproductive rights, now is the time to find out as much information on this topic as you can, so you can be a support in any way you can, whether that's simply through financial measures in terms of supporting financially certain organizations, or if there are other things that can be done. But we wanted to talk about abortion in this country.
Yes, I mean, I don't know what all is happening, other than anything that you've brought up, but it made me ask myself a question, because I realized I've heard of Roe v. Wade, but I didn't really know anything about it, other than that was kind of where the Supreme Court kind of made this decision, like in the 70s. Yeah,
early 70s.
Early 70s, because I just realized I didn't write down any of the years, but it was like 69, 70 type time frame that all of this was going on. So I had no idea anything about it. And so I decided to take a minute for myself and educate myself on Roe v. Wade. And I thought that would be something worth sharing. Do you know much about Roe v. Wade?
I know a little bit, and I did read through some of your notes too, so I was able to keep up that way. But because I know you're going to be talking about Roe, and I know a little bit about that. But what did you learn?
And then I will totally preface this, like, I was totally fascinated by a lot of this, and mostly because I didn't realize that it took place in Texas.
Hmm.
That really honestly surprised me. So Roe v. Wade, you've got Henry Wade, and he was the district attorney of Dallas County, Texas at the time. And that's relevant because that is where Jane Roe lived. And Jane Roe, I found out, turned out to be a fictional name, and it was given to protect a plaintiff's identity. Her real name's apparently Norma McCorvey. I think I'm
Yeah.
saying that right. But essentially, Roe filed a lawsuit against Wade because that was where she lived, was Dallas County. So of course she would file the lawsuit against the district attorney. Like, it wasn't anything personal. It's just how you do these things.
Right.
But challenging a Texas law making abortion illegal except by a doctor's orders to save the mother's life. It was basically being argued that the state laws were, quote, unconstitutionally vague. And this is the case that went to the landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court that ruled that the Constitution of the United States protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction. Which is funny to me, just as a side note before I go to the next part, is that, the Republicans seem to be more for that narrative, except for this topic. Right? Because
Yes.
aren't they big, like, they don't want the government controlling too much, but this one they want them to weigh in.
It's the 10th Amendment, states' rights essentially, and that's like Obama in 2012 came out with limited support of gay marriage, but he essentially punted by stating that he felt it was a states' rights issue in terms of whether it should be legalized or not, which was a shitty response. But yeah, Republicans are very much hypocritical because they want states' rights until they want to be able to tell people what they feel you should not do.
Right. So I did find a decent summary of how the decision was made, and it made me discover a new website, and it's pronounced Oyez, but it's Oyez, and it's a free law project. Cornell Legal Information Institute and a few others brought this together to try to make, like, everything with the U.S. Supreme Court more accessible. So if you were curious if something like that existed, that exists, and I will totally share the link to this little bit that I found. But Justice Harry Blackmun delivered the opinion for the 7-2 majority of the court. So this is basically, I wanted to understand, like, well, if they already decided that this was constitutionally the right move to make, what made them make that decision? So here's what they said. First, the court considered whether the case was moot, concluding that it was not. When the subject of litigation is, quote, capable of repetition yet evading review, end quote, a case need not be dismissed as moot. Pregnancy is a classic justification for a conclusion of non-mootness. So basically, like, is it even worth looking at? Because how often is this going to happen? That's the way I kind of understood that paragraph.
Right.
So because pregnancy happens, this is not a moot point. We should talk about this. So next, the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment protects against state action the right to privacy, and a woman's right to choose to have an abortion falls within that right to privacy. A state law that broadly prohibits abortion without respect to the stage of pregnancy or other interests violates that right. Although the state has legitimate interests in protecting the health of pregnant women and the, quote, potentiality, or however you say that word, of life, end quote, the relative weight of each of these interests varies over the course of pregnancy, and the law must account for this variability. So basically, they found right in where they felt that it fit in the Constitution, like, yeah, this is covered under that.
Right.
So, and then they went on for the decision. In the first trimester of pregnancy, the state may not regulate the abortion decision. Only the pregnant woman and her attending physician can make that decision. In the second trimester, the state may impose regulations on abortions that are reasonable or reasonably related to maternal health. In the third trimester, once the fetus reaches the point of viability, a state may regulate abortions or prohibit them entirely, so long as the law contains exceptions for cases when abortion is necessary to save the life or health of the mother. And see, like, reading through that actually seems pretty reasonable what they came to. Yeah. Like, it's not all of it. It's like, okay, so and I'll get into it because I've got more about Norma McCorvey and like what kind of prompted all of this. And it really makes sense when you think about it in her case, why she would want one.
Right.
But yeah, like that way you find out you're pregnant and it's like, you can't either afford it or can't whatever, or like say you've got like stage 4 cancer or something, maybe there's a reason that you wouldn't want to bring a life into the world that maybe you don't owe explanation to people. So that's really what I feel like this was trying to encompass, was giving women that right to say, I'm going to have this baby. I'm not like, I know right now I'm not in a place to have a baby. This was definitely not like on purpose.
And let's make one thing clear too, based on what was said. I remember back in the 90s when Bill Clinton signed that ban on partial birth abortions, how it was a big deal amongst the pro-life crowd, when the fact of the matter is, when it comes to the later stages of a pregnancy, if most women, if they get to that point, 5-6 months down the road, they're pretty much generally committed to having the baby at that point. A woman is not, they're not going to be 7 months pregnant along and think, oh, maybe I want that abortion now. Generally, if it gets to be that later stage, the only reason a woman is even considering getting abortion at that point is the risk to her life.
Most probably. And I would say that would be even more probable than say like, oh, well, my boyfriend left or whatever. It seems, that's the most probable. I'm not going to claim to know the numbers on that because I haven't looked it up, but I'm sure if you're curious enough, you can totally find like the numbers of how many people even would try to request that at that point.
I think it is in the Vagina Bible book from Dr. Jen Gunter. The Canadian gynecologist, because I know it's something that I read on her Twitter as well, because she consistently will go after people, because she does have this voice in this book that are spreading lies about women's reproductive health or abortion or stuff like that. So she's generally one of the louder voices defending reproductive rights online.
Yeah.
But
so that's how they decided that was protected, and that was the, again, IMHO, the totally reasonable outline they kind of gave, because then it is kind of state's choice, but overall women's rights are being protected here. So about Norma McCorvey and the flip-flopping. So first I wanted to go into, well, why did she even want the abortion, right? Or why was she involved, I guess. So McCorvey, aka Roe, became pregnant with her third child in 1969. She was only 21 at the time and wanted an abortion. And that's really it. That's what seems to have started this. And you have to think about that. To be on your third child in 1969, and I believe this was out of wedlock, I could totally see, like, even without looking into it any further, why one might want an abortion without prying too much. The reasons she did end up giving was that she was unemployable and greatly depressed, which, again, kind of supports what might be a good reason to not have a child. Because to me, when it's happening in that first trimester situation, that's no different than, do I have this baby? Do I not do this? Do I not have this baby? Is no different of a conversation than like if you were talking about maybe planning one with your current partner.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, it's no more hot or cold than that. Like, you're not cruel for deciding to put a condom on because, like, you're not at a financial place to have a baby, like, in your couplehood. So in my head, it makes sense, like, this is the time to make those decisions, right?
And this is kind of like along the same lines of what we talked about with colleges that get students to, sign their name on these loans for 80, 90, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. 21 years old with 3 kids, it's like she wasn't young enough to really deal with that. And anyway, go ahead.
I think you meant old enough. You said young enough, but you meant she wasn't old enough to deal with that. There we go. Yeah. Sorry, I was just making sure. But anyway, so basically she couldn't get an abortion due to Texas law being what it was. So she did end up placing the baby up for adoption in Texas, which I have mentioned, there's actually overcrowding and foster care issues in Texas. So this just goes to show how some of that could be. But something that I found interesting that I learned in this was that apparently some of her friends tried to talk her into falsely claiming, quote, that she had been raped by a group of black men so that she could obtain legal abortion. And I'm like, wow, is that not like kind of a premises for an Innocence File episode? Like, it just feels like if that had gone that route, that would have been an Innocence Files situation. You know what I mean?
It is not like it has not been done before. I mean, like Emmett
Right.
Till was murdered because a white woman apparently said that he tried to, like he whistled at her or something like that. And it turns out that didn't even happen. And even if it did, he didn't deserve to die. But, it's,
Right.
yeah, anyway.
Like whistling's kind of a, I don't know, death for whistling just seems like a bit of a
little
harsh,
excessive. A
little harsh.
Yeah.
It's a tough room, tough crowd. So I wanted to get into some of the things that have caused some skepticism with her. So in 1983, McCorvey told the press that she had been raped, and then 4 years after that, she said the rape claim was untrue. So it's interesting because some time had passed, and us knowing how memory works, I'm just curious, like how much of that got kind of confused in her head with her friends trying to talk her into things. So that's why I kind of wanted to bring those two things up. But yeah, so I can understand where people started to get skeptical of her. She did about another decade after that convert to Christianity, and this led her to quit her job at the abortion clinic and then become an advocate for a campaign to make abortion illegal.
Yeah, that's where I first became aware of her. Because in the 90s, that's when I was still thinking I was a religious and all that stuff. And yeah, she was manipulated by those folks. Basically, it came out after she passed away. There was an article that I read that at that time in 95, she was approached by some pro-Christian people at a time when she needed some money. And
Oh, wow. See, I didn't find any of that stuff because I didn't dig
yeah,
in that far. I just wanted to dig into like where some of the skepticism came in, like while she was still alive. But
yeah,
yeah, like when she converted to Christianity, that's when she started voicing remorse over the role in the Supreme Court decision. And she began claiming that she'd been a pawn for abortion activists. And
yeah.
see, to me, that doesn't make any sense because she was legitimately like pregnant at the time going through some things. So, what abortion activist? Like, I don't know. That just seemed like kind of a weird throw in and
Yeah.
almost falling under that fun saying that sometimes when people accuse of something, they're
Thou,
actually confessing.
thou doth
So,
protest too much. Yeah.
so I'm wondering if that was part of like possibly the campaign winning her over because in her second book, Won by Love, she said that her change of heart was all due to seeing a fetal development poster in the office of the anti-abortion campaign she'd eventually join,
Yeah.
which I chose not to say the name of this campaign. You can look it up if you want to. I don't like to say the names of anti-campaigns because I don't want to give them attention. But
Right.
yeah, to me, that puts together like almost the story. If I can spin a story here, like it almost seems like she got, turned into a pawn for the anti-abortion activists
Yeah.
and was maybe coached in some things to say because it doesn't make any sense to going back in time and looking at the case because there wasn't an ability to go into an abortion clinic and to me, and by the way, I will always invite our listeners, like if you find like or know a cool article or know something and can research and give us a cool source, by all means, Facebook group. Because if you're not on there, please join us. It's fun. Every now and then we have some cool conversations. But as far as I can tell, like it makes no sense that she would have been a pawn of abortion activists in the 70s.
Yeah, because at that time, I mean, it's not like before Roe v. Wade that abortion was 100% illegal in the entire country. Essentially, at that point, it was a state by state case basis. So in places like in California, maybe there'd be a lot more access than it would be in Texas or Mississippi or Georgia or something like that. And what Roe v. Wade did was make it a national issue, which, for good or bad, bad, did a lot of good things. But I know Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of all people, was a little critical of Roe v. Wade because she felt that it wasn't essentially the right way to go about gaining abortion rights, because she felt that more than anything, what abortion rights are in this country, they're about equality. Because if men are able to dictate to women on when and where they can or cannot have a baby, that prevents a woman from, in Norma McCorvey's case, finding employment potentially, and let's talk about another thing that the Christian folks in this country, they have this myth that, if that somehow in some way, if they make abortion illegal, then every single baby born after that will be a wanted baby. No.
And not even that. Making abortion illegal doesn't even make it not happen. Because some of the arguments for this going on, because this is a little bit into the next part, but that's fine. I was done, by the way, talking about sort of the Supreme Court stuff. But going into why are abortion rights important? Well, there was a WHO report actually in 2012 that came out. And their, like, the too long didn't read summary of it is states should eliminate barriers to abortion services, provide accurate information on reproductive health care. And so really making them illegal doesn't make them stop is kind of the thing here. Part of what the new guidance recognized was that nearly every one of the approximately 47,000 deaths and additional 5 million injuries were due to unsafe abortions worldwide. And they could have been prevented through sexuality education, family planning, and the provision of safe, legal, induced abortion and care for any complications. So there were other reasons that this was brought up as being a good thing, because unfortunately, I mean, even look at Dirty Dancing, is if anybody out there classic movie wise, like that's what that was. That was literally back alley abortions got their names from somewhere. Like that's not just a term somebody made up. They were totally happening anyway. And they were causing other problems like women dying. So then it's like not only is there no more baby, there were like septicism and stuff like that. So because you can go septic, right? Like if they're not cleaning stuff properly and that's like a surgical thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so anywho, the WHO had updated safe abortion guidance because it was kind of under the determination that providing women across the globe with access to safe and legal abortion services is essential to realizing and protecting their fundamental human rights.
And and the right to be able to make decisions about their own body. I mean, imagine that. It's funny now what the pandemic has brilliantly done is show the hypocrisy on a lot of these anti-abortion folks, because the anti-abortion crowds are the very same people that are generally going out and picketing about, how dare you tell me to wear a mask? You don't tell me what to do with my body.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think I had told you about that one comment that I had made, because you just reminded me that I totally did a public comment. I know, guys, I said I would quit, but I couldn't help myself, and I outed myself to Tim immediately and took a screenshot. But there was this woman that was talking about, last I checked, I lived in America where it's my body, my choice. And so I think I put under there something like, so to be clear, you're pro-choice, right? Like, because she was just talking about like God, and God gave me an immune system and stuff like this.
Yeah.
I felt, I don't know. I won't go back and delete it or anything because it wasn't the worst thing to say, but it was funny. Yeah.
I mean, the thing about abortion is that the reason it became a big hot topic in America is thanks to one Jerry Falwell. It's essentially the Republican Party, the conservatives have found a way to take this issue and make it seem so important, because let's go with labeling. I mean, they call themselves the pro-life movement, implying that if you're not supporting them, you're for death. It's not the case, and a lot of these pro-life people, the policies that they do want to institute, it's like, they want to ban abortion, but they don't want to put any sort of resources into the things that could potentially cause a woman to want to consider it in the first place, and let's also talk about the fact that are they seriously expecting people to not have sex? You know?
I know. Like, can we get over this myth that people only have sex when they're married? Like, are we there yet? Because, yeah, and I don't know. I don't even understand like why this is an issue, because in the it's some of the arguments of Christianity that really kind of pulled me away from the church. Like, I consider myself a recovering from religion person. I did unfortunately experience some really bad shitty shit through like the organized religion that is the Christian church. But the weird controllingness of people. And some of the things also in the church that I didn't like was like how they really just got it in their minds that it somehow was their fate, that it somehow depends on like talking women out of having abortions, talking people into being Christians, talking people out of doing other bad things. And being a person who went to a frickin' Christian university and had to study the Bible for the first few years there because they like make you take Bible classes, I still don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
Now it does say go out and speak and talk it's basically saying speak your fucking truth, but about Christianity. Like, talk about why you do the things you do.
But there's
that people know. But
and I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing I want to make clear is this: if there is somebody out there that is listening, and I know my aunt on occasion listens, and she is very much pro-life. If you as an individual don't support abortion, that's fine.
Oh, yeah, nobody should make you get one, because that would also be really horrific world to live in. Like, I don't think they should be doing that either. But as far as I never understood the need to control other people on that topic. And that's what really broke me open to the need to control people on most topics, because that was my first introduction to it.
And it shows how little faith they have in what they actually believe by trying to legislate it. Like if they don't get abortion, if they don't get abortion banned, somehow that means that God is not there or something. I mean, it's just like, if they really believed in what they believed in, they should be able to just convince people of it. And again, if you don't believe in abortion and want to live in a religious experience, that is fine. I got no problem with that. Yeah. But when you start trying to dictate your religious beliefs on me or people I love, or even just the random person, that's the problem that we have here, because the science does not back up Christianity in terms of childhood and whatnot, and take a look at some of the like the Mississippi law, for instance, says that it's banning abortions after the 15th week. How many stories have you heard as a woman of the women who find out they're pregnant like at 6 months or after what's common, like in Texas, like they recently enacted a law that like signed a law on like Fox and Friends of all places to where you could, real appropriate, but in terms of like you couldn't get an abortion after like 6 or 7 weeks or something like that, which
most women don't even know by then, because I had a teen pregnancy situation happen with me, and I had a lot of denial going on in my head. So there is a lot of that, because I had looked into that because the whole I didn't know I was pregnant thing. And what I researched on that one, the science behind that is it seems more of a denial situation than it is like not having certain things. There are possibilities of like, you skip your period or whatever for many reasons, and some of it can be diet related, but it seems like a lot of denial has to be going on for people to really go that long. Now, that's not making that not a valid reason, right? Yeah. Like, of course, like denial happens, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to make a decision at some point.
Yeah, and
especially
also,
when it's reasonable. Just side note there, because I don't know how I feel about the whole partial birth abortion. But everybody's got their own choice.
But that's the thing, though. The gynecologist in question I mentioned, when she talked about partial birth abortion, she said that this only happens with people whose life are in danger. This is not being done. Partial birth abortion is not being done just by somebody that had a change of heart.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying. Like, I didn't know about making those were just like, I don't know. I could see that one having a limit, because it's so few and far between that would want it outside of that, except when a doctor, which is even what the Supreme Court said. They
now,
said that unless a doctor says, like after that third trimester. So that still checks out with why things are the way they are now. And the thing that I really have kind of, I guess, supported was that decision and those levels. Like, I get it. That seems to make sense. Like, you have the first trimester to get real with yourself, or I don't know, take a pregnancy test. Like, and I'm sure, by the way, if we have any listeners out there that did have like a legit surprise pregnancy, A, I would be fascinated to hear about that. And B, please don't take this to mean I think you're full of shit. Like, it's not that. I'm just saying it's extremely rare to really not know. And that was really the point of that old health article. And maybe I can try to find that and share it. But like I still remember, I think one of the worst things I had heard in the church, like trying to talk to somebody about abortion rights stuff, right, is I had brought up that, women who get abortions outside of, safe areas, like, can die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, we should want them to be safe because they're still one of God's children, and you don't know, they could always come back to, like, Jesus, right? Because this is back when I was going to church, so I was trying this out.
I can only guess what the answer is.
Yeah, it's probably about as jarring as you thought, and I would call it, because we have our toxic versions of everything. I would definitely put this under toxic Christianity, but she had basically said that, well, that person killed a baby, so they kind of deserve to go to hell. And I was like, oh, that was so never the point of anything Jesus ever taught. But okay, you're allowed to have your opinions. Because, by the way, like, I am so pro-choice, but I don't know if I would do that. Like, if I found out that I was. And I'm not particularly, like, not even for religious reasons necessarily. Just because I think I would be okay with trying that experiment if it happened. That was one of the things with me growing up, is like I never really felt like it was natural to think of this body having a baby, which goes into other topics that maybe we can go into next month, since it's Pride Month. But like, so maybe there's a teaser here just accidentally thrown in. But yeah, like it was one of those things, like, where I probably, when I thought about it the first time, like, my knee-jerk reaction was, of course I would, because I don't want to do that. But then it's like, when I really thought about it at one point, like, shadow work level of it, like, I don't know if I would. But that doesn't mean that that's the way that everybody should do it. I shouldn't ban everybody from making a decision just because I don't want to, for whatever my personal reasons are.
But that's the thing. It's your personal reason. And the particularly loathsome thing that the Republicans are doing now, and they've made it very clear over the past few years that they have no compunction to do this. And they're even against what normally in the past would have been the exceptions that Republicans would have been happy with in terms of rape and incest. They are now hardcore nationally pushing for no exceptions whatsoever. And just it's like how can you call yourself a Christian and tell me that you would have no problem going to a 12-year-old girl who was raped by her father and tell them that they have to keep the baby?
Yeah, right. And also, like,
God's
that can
gift.
just woof, some of those things. And I don't know, some of me is like, is this some kind of weird having a fit revenge because you couldn't get your Republican president back in? Like, because I do kind of recognize some of the stupid open. Red v. blue, but
they've been open about they want to just completely ban it. And now that they've stacked the court, I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if next year they come out with anything short of they're not going to dismiss this case. They're not going to rule against it. It's with the court the way it is, and with Kavanaugh and the other Trump put in 3 people. It's 6-3 now in terms of conservatives versus progressive judges on that court. It's going to pass. The thing that we have, if you are supportive of reproductive rights, the thing we have to do now is essentially organize. That, long story short, organize. We're like in Oregon, people are generally going to be safe, but you have to organize even in Oregon and pressure your lawmakers locally and support organizations around the country, because now more than ever they're going to need it. And just think about Norma McCorvey. She's 21 years old, got pregnant with what would have been her third kid if she didn't put it up for adoption or whatever, and just for the life of me, I can't be that personally selfish. I mean, because to your point too, like, yeah, if like I am having sex with a woman and put her in a spot to where she wants to consider it to keeping the baby, I have to live with that consequence, but I'm not going to I would be a dick if I told a woman, you have to keep that baby. And we have to fight. It's just, we so much harm happened from November 2016. And we've already had over 500,000 COVID deaths here. Just imagine what's going to happen when, reproductive rights in states that really need all the help they can get, because you mentioned in Texas they have overflow in terms of adoption and foster parents.
Oh, and guess what else they're really big on fighting? Single parents adopting children, homosexual couples adopting children. Like, when you compound all these issues together that's being fought, like, it makes no fucking sense to me. So this is one of those topics I will totally be frustrated about, because it doesn't necessarily affect me personally, but it's just one of those things when you hear the whole quote unquote argument about it, it's just like, well, what the fuck? Like, well, of course there's a foster care problem. Like, you're taking out like a good chunk of demographic of humans who would want to adopt the child that you just like in the world that abortion is illegal, right? Because if abortion is illegal, that's going to be the choice. Like, oh, we'll give them up for adoption and they'll get a new loving family, not at all raised by the system and dumped on the streets at 18.
And that's another.
Yeah, but they're not even like allowing the full pool of potential adopters to adopt.
Because a number of these adoption agencies are quote unquote Christian organizations. Take a look at what happened in Michigan. There was, I forgot the name of the particular place, but I remember that name from when I was a kid in terms of the work they did in Michigan. And that was also the company that Betsy DeVos ended up using in terms of recommending for migrant children that got separated from their families, that, now they can't get them back to their families because they don't know why, where these people are at. And there's just, again, we got to fight. We got to fight. The reason we're bringing this up is to, if you listen to the show and you support reproductive rights, help out in any way, shape, or form that you can, because a lot of women and a lot of children too are going to be put in, like, if they're like, take Norma McCorvey's kid, the one she put up for adoption, I mean, if it's an overflow adoption and the kid doesn't get it, because normally with adoption, it's like adopting a pet. Normally the ones that get adopted are going to be the young kids or the babies. If you're talking about a 12-year-old kid, that's a different story. A lot of people are not adopting the older kids, and support reproductive rights.
Because it's important. It really is. Because if this stuff ends up going down and we end up getting more kids in foster care, because that's what's going to happen if it's not an option, we're either going to have that or both are dead because of, back alley type style again.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see where that's in the best interest of our culture and society as a whole. Like, and I'm not even saying like, oh, well, I'd be okay with abortion bans if they just let other people adopt. Like, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying it definitely doesn't make the issue easier. And by the way, just go ahead, like, let women have their rights to their fucking bodies, and let people like adopt kids. Like, those should both exist in my world.
And it should be encouraged too. I mean, granted, there should be vetting of a potential adoptive parent, but only to make sure that someone like a Kevin Spacey's not adopting.
Yeah, like, I think you should totally vet and even check in from time to time and make sure everything's kosher. Like, with any of them, by the way, because even abusive straight couples, just throwing this out there, can adopt.
Yeah.
Like, that can happen. So it's like, yeah, I totally could see like there being some kind of check-in thing. If that's for some reason that makes it better for everybody. But I don't know. Like, I just think making abortions illegal in the world that we're in right now, where there's such a small pool of people who can adopt and even can afford to adopt, because that's the other thing. It is flippin' expensive to do that. Like, it is way cheaper to have your own baby than
Yeah.
to adopt. So, and that's if they choose you. You know what I mean? So there's like a whole process. But and I don't think it should be easier to have a baby than it is to adopt one. But that's just my humble. I get that there should be possibly some costs associated, or maybe this should be something that the public sector does somehow, cover. But it's just because it's being paid for one way or the other, right? Like the public sector, because these foster homes get money from somewhere.
They do. It's just, for me, if I had any say, I mean, nationally, I would make it to where no Christian organization could have anything to do with adoption agencies, foster homes, or anything like that. Religion should not enter into that at all. Yet, it's that's a different story for a different day. But anyway, anything else we want to talk about in regards to abortion?
Oh gosh. No, that's really it. Like I've never had one. Just in case anyone was curious, like I've never had to do that. But that was the point, right? Like I said, like I wouldn't know what I would do if I was ever in that position, like honestly.
Yeah,
But I
we're
just
not
don't
going to have
know.
a 12-part series about all your abortions. No.
No, this isn't some weird teaser to guess what the Reverend's doing next week, guys. God, no.
On our
No.
YouTube channel. No.
It might not be allowed on YouTube.
Or who knows. But anyway, I think we will wrap it up then.
Yeah, I think I think this was a good topic. It was fun to nerd out about it. Like I said, I was fascinated by some of the things that I was reading. So
Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up by stating once again, we have to fight because things are going to get dark here for a while. And if what the 4 years of being held hostage by the Republican Party taught us anything, is that if we are going to institute change in this country, we have to fight for it. We can't sit back and hope that the Democratic Party will actually do something, because as they are currently proving, it's not going to happen. I mean, because the Republicans have come out and said they're going to use the filibuster to hopefully prevent the January 6th commission from becoming law. And it's just like, ugh.
what's the January 6th commission? I guess we're going to have a side topic before we wrap up.
The January. It would be a commission, a bipartisan commission studying everything that happened in regards to what happened on January 6th of this year. Republicans want to kind of play the whataboutism with this. Their big thing is, well, why don't you talk about the quote unquote Antifa tactics from last year? No, the Antifa, first of all, is not a real organization. Two,
exactly. You mean the organization that you guys are just convinced is real and is not? No, we're not looking into it.
And second of all, for the sake of argument, let's say Antifa was indeed real. I don't recall any of these protests that happened over the last summer or are still currently happening in Portland. I don't recall them involving insurrection. So it's like
kind of a different level of stuff there.
Yeah, so the only reason they bring it up is that it's the classic whataboutism of Republicans that deflects from actually talking about the fact that we had an insurrection by the Republican candidate of the United States.
Exactly.
Republicans have if Republicans, but it's like I think about this. It's like if Republicans want to survive, you would think they would want to lance that Trump boil as quickly as they can. But the fact that they're doubling down on it, that's extra reason for people in our position to fight, because the moment we start thinking everything's somewhat back to normal, 2022 comes along. If Republicans get back into control of things, think about all of the unnecessary, they're going to attempt to impeach Biden for something stupid. They will, just cause, they impeached Trump, so we have to do it to own the libs, and just.
It's like they don't want it looked into because they're mad that their stupid fucking, well, Antifa did it thing didn't work. Because I remember hearing about that from some article that I had read that there was like a Republican senator that was trying to say that it was like Antifa did January 6th. It's like, no. And it's like they had to sit them down like a child that has already been explained that Santa's not real. It's like, hey, or the boogeyman. There we go. We'll do like a negative thing. Like the boogeyman's not real, little Bobby. So, for the 18th time, go the fuck to sleep. So it's just like that with Antifa, with the Republican, with the red team. Because I like to distinguish between what I would call like an actual Republican and like team red type people and Republicans.
The problem, though, is the fact that the people that need to hear this information about what actually happened on January 6th are in that conservative news bubble. Until that is popped, we're going to continue to have it stoked. I mean, and I did read an article about a judge that is dealing with one of the people that was involved in it. And the judge came out and said the reason he is keeping that person in jail is because Donald Trump and the Republican Party are still continuing to promote this big lie. And the fact that they are promoting that lie is going to continue to provoke people to use violence in honor of that lie. And we need to do everything we can to tell as many people as we can to wake the fuck up,
Exactly. So impassioned that you're breaking
breaking shit.
Breaking shit. We're so mad about this. But that goes back to a point like I think I tried to make before. It was something I felt like I kind of stumbled over when I tried to say it before. It's like, this is why it's so important to have a variety of people out there kind of fighting for those variety of passions. Like I have my advocacy and my awareness, and that does not mean that this is not important to me. But I really do hope that we can all balance each other out, because rights are kind of important. And just like we should have people fighting for Black lives rights, we should have people fighting for women's lives rights. We should have people fighting for children's rights and even fathers' rights, because that even goes into some of the Black rights and things like that. So fight your thing, get out there. Like, don't be I mean, I guess not everybody has to be like a freaking change warrior or something, but if you are impassioned to do such things, like, find it and fly with it, baby, because I just think, that's kind of what it's going to take to get some things to change. We can't have everybody working on one thing at a time. That would be like if there's 10 holes in the boat. Well, if everybody focuses on the one fucking hole, well, the other 9 are still pouring water into the damn boat. So if we split task, we can maybe get some good positive changes going and not go backwards in time.
Yeah, I mean, but history being what it is, it'll probably just be like it was in the 1900s. I mean, in 1900s started with extreme conservatives running things, a pandemic hit, and then a Democrat had to come and change things around in FDR. Of course, we had a couple wars in between. And then once things settled down after the big wars, people kind of tended to forget because everything was going along so well. So history will ultimately repeat itself. 100 years down the road, our ancestors will be bitching about us or something like that. But,
and all the shit we did wrong and how fucking backwards and behind and slow we were on stuff. But that's okay. That's a world I'm cool. I hope I get to see it. My brother and I were having a talk this week, with all the family drama, because I do have a brother still in my world, and he had talked about parents being a product of their generation, as will we be one day. And I'm like, you know what? I'm cool with that, because that's what keeps me humble as a person, is that I will be that product of my generation, and I understand it in a big way. I kind of already am. But, there's some things that I hope I see in the world that's like better. Like I'd be okay if I'm a product of my time, but like, I don't know, maybe mental health and stuff is like normalized, and mental hygiene and shit. And we realize how important some of the small things are. And maybe we're not even talking about whether or not abortion is okay anymore or anything. You know what I mean? Like, this can be like, I just want the argument to be done.
I mean, even something as simple as words, like, my generation in the 90s, we spoke our mind a lot. And a lot of times that meant we put our foot in our mouth a lot in terms of the types of jokes that we said. But, anyway, let's just wrap it up here. So thank you all for listening. We hope you tune in again next time. So we will see you later.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Dirty on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.